Tara here talking with Dave. He's the co-founder of Laurel Bath House, which he started with his wife, Laura. Laurel Bath House is a clean personal care brand that's sold in Urban Outfitters, Goop, Forward.com, and also sells direct to consumer on laurelbathhouse.com. The business is completely bootstrapped from day one, and Dave and Laura, they handle everything from product development to branding to running meta ads and retail growth. In this episode, we're going to talk about what it really takes to build a personal care brand from the ground up, how Dave approaches brand voice and packaging, and how they're using both the retail and paid media to grow. Dave, welcome so much. Thank you for joining me on the brand study.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. And before we get into the Laurel Bath House story, I would love to hear a little bit about what you were doing before this project.
Usually going into the past couple of years of my career helped understand why Laurel's doing so well now. I had a clothing line where we worked with a ton of talent, name it, we kind of worked with them. The Weeknd, Juice World, Poji, Little Peep. So we're doing music collaborations with them. And then started doing Little Wayne's clothing line, and he was too difficult to work with. Like I saw in his phone book, I was free hoodie Dave. I was like, this is not my space anymore. He had me jump on a plane once at like 6 a.m. to bring Percocets and a hat to him to Vegas. Like I was like, this is not for me. So I had this idea that I really wanted to bring to market. So I said, fucking wipe this entire brand, which we had about like 130,000 followers. We did about 2 million to 3 million. I said, fuck it, I'm going to wipe it. And we started making shoes from unused sex toys. So I took dildos and made shoes out of them. And it was amazing and perfect. And it showed me the volume and value of a good sticky story for lack of a better term. It was very sticky. People translated it very well, it communicated very well. So then I actually sold that company, exited. And then I ran Machine Gun Kelly's businesses. So anything that touched MGK, from his fund to his coffee shop to his merch and his rollouts of his the movie, it kind of anything. It was a team of three. So anything in the business world of MGK was us three. And then I was doing subversive marketing for the Harris campaign, working on essentially doing dick jokes for trying to get, it was originally Biden elected and then turned to Harris. So we had Biden's Finsta, which was so much fun. His fake Instagram. So we were like sliding into a bunch of DMs, and it was a good time. Yeah. And then I decided to just leave all that and start.
That's amazing. How did those opportunities, like, how'd you get involved in those opportunities? Because those are like super high level. Like you're working with, A-list.
It started with, honestly, it's always been cold outreach. It's me just sitting and finding who the person is that I need to talk to and getting in touch with them and just showing value in the shortest period of time with the most succinct kind of like, here's what we do. Here's how it's going to be better. And I just really found that artist merch was really badly handled for a very long time. So it was a good opening to do something high quality with artists themselves that wanted high quality merch associated with their names. It's usually pretty bad. It was me just calling and emailing and DMing and getting referrals and friends of friends. And then that just kind of started to snowball, but everything was outbound. Like, I don't think a single collaboration or artist or anything was inbound. It was me making relationships.
That's a grind and a hustle at its finest right there. I love that. All right, so we're gonna go from making dick jokes for Biden to how did you get to personal care and actually getting Laurel Bath House, the concept? What was that aha moment?
So kind of two things came together at the same time. One, when we were building Rose of Good Faith and doing the shoe, I was trying to take the logic of the shoe and then bring it into other products. So I was working on a fine fragrance. And when my wife was my girlfriend at the time, she smelled the scent and was like, it's a body wash. Like, this is not a perfume. It's not a cologne. This is a body wash. I got very mad. So I've been working on this for months. Now you're telling me it's bad. And then in the process of selling Rose of Good Faith, a private equity company said, you can't produce any new products until we've closed the deal. And I said, okay, fine. I decided to take her advice and make body wash. And at the same time, I started getting into the MGK. So there was a crossover and I started working with the MGK team, and I got a lot of view into cross brands and their kind of economics. And I saw that there was a huge data point that was being untouched, which was women who buy for their significant other who don't really have a lot of natural options. So it's something that's high quality and expensive or low quality and cheap. And buying for their significant other, they just tend to go more low, but they're buying for themselves something really nice. So I wanted to find something that was the easiest to bring home and the easiest to communicate and say, like, here's cuffed, try it. So then we just said, okay, we started.
So would you say your consumer, at the end of the day, your consumers, you know, wives and girlfriends of men that are buying this?
We originally, that was our target. It has quickly become a equal split 50-50, where I think we're really replacing Aesop by Rito and becoming a better option for, let's say, another comp would be like Natrum or Native or Dr. Bronner. So we're kind of in this interesting middle space. But so I was genuinely surprised the volume of men that have actually purchased from us.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then jumping into the category, like you didn't have any experience or background. Like where do you start? Like art, personal care, where do we even go with body wash? So you had a scent, right, that you knew you wanted to roll with.
Yeah. So I had a scent, and then I found as many manufacturers as I could in LA here, tested a whole bunch of them, took a very long time, but then found one that was incredible and amazing, and they were efficient and they were fast. And I've had always a strong proclivity to the feel and the texture of a really good body wash, hand wash, anything to do with soap. I've always really like had a sensitivity for what was really good. So I knew what I didn't want. So it took a long time to figure out, what is the ingredient that's making it feel sticky, or what's the ingredient that's making it feel like caking on, or it feels watered down. So I found the right supplier and the right guys. And then just actually at the time, we were still closing the private equity deal. So I sold my house. And I was so gung ho on, I'm like, this is going to do well because I saw what a shoe did. So, like an evergreen product that isn't time sensitive, that will last in market for a long period of time. So, I'm like, I'll use the same logic from the shoe, which went like viral and did an insane number of units, and use it for body wash at its lower cost of entry, and a more white space. So, I sold the house and then used that capital to start Laurel.
So truly bootstrapped, self-funded from the day you began and still to this day.
Yeah. Yeah. Still, and I see why there's so much value in bootstrapping and why I love the bootstrapping is that you can make a pivot and do tests and you don't have to report to really anybody, especially when we toe the line of like nuanced sexual innuendo. I have a chart in front of me of like, how do you create a strong, smart brand? And I always look at this chart and I'm like, who's the enemy? What is our differentiator? And I can keep playing with these nuances over and over and over again without any oversight, which I think is really great. And then when you see what works, you double down on what works and then triple down on what works.
You can really run your own experiments. Yeah, I've been following your Instagram, and for a new brand with not a huge amount of following, your content goes crazy. Like you're just going viral left and right, which is
Thank you.
which is so awesome. And I've noticed that Laurel Bath House, you're bold, you're funny, rebellious, definitely have like that sexual like innuendo that you're talking about. How did you land on that tone of voice? And it seems like you really injected that ethos throughout the brand.
Yeah. I mean, the tone is really like me and the wife. It's how we communicate. Like she is always the ultimate version of like, it's her voice. She's hilarious and loves a nuanced joke. And like we've always connected on this kind of like playful comedic stand that's a little dark, but also very cheeky and fun. And I always say, like, I learned from the shoe, do something that big corporations can never do. And it's easier to break through the noise that way. It's much simpler, I would say, because it catches attention. And in the age of the currency is awareness, it's really being able to have something that feels shareable, that feels viable, that feels like it's educational, but it's also appealing to a deep humanistic element, which is funny and humor, because like no one wants to be sold to. I genuinely thought TikTok was going to fall apart after they did TikTok Shop, and then every other post became an ad. I'm still surprised that it hasn't tanked their app, having that much volume of ads, because no one wants to be sold to. So it's like, how do you sell without selling?
You'll definitely walk that fine line. Are you ever worried about being too bold or creating too much polarization?
I always go back and forth, and we're still a little bit under a year in. So we're about 11 months in. We've had a lot of no's because of the nuance. So, like, Target said no, Costco said no, Walmart said no. A lot of really big, safe retailers were like, we won't even touch this, which is really how a brand scales in this space as going omnichannel in the personal care space, having to go omnichannel. So that became somewhat of a challenge, but then it also became our superpower, which is I can do an ad and post an ad about, like, why would you use body wash? Why would you use a bar of soap on your pubes and then on your face? Like, it doesn't make sense. But I could do that. And there's no one that's like, I'm not going to get a call. And then my main client, Target, is going to say, like, what are you doing? So it's been a push and pull, an interesting kind of push and pull. I try to go a little bit softer on a few, like the next scent that we have coming up is called Rocket Man, which I think is going to be much more nuanced. Then after that's Banana, which is like a summery, kind of like vacation-esque scent.
That's so awesome. So not only do you not have investors to kind of guide the ship, you don't even have major, more conservative, traditional retailers that are kind of forcing your hand either. So it's like goes beyond bootstrapping. Like this truly is you and Laura's vision and your baby for how you want to show up in the world and how you want the brand to show up.
I mean, it definitely has ceilings that creates some ceilings of growth, but it is so much more in control, and we get to pivot and change and do whatever we kind of want to do and test and iterate and learn and discover. So we had a TikTok post that went like pretty viral. So my expectations of how the funnel would work got completely decimated because it came in a way that I never would have expected. It was just an organic post that got traction because my wife's high and I totally milked that and used that as a tool. And it was really interesting to see people went to Google to find us and then came to us or went to Amazon directly. No TikTok shop. I would have expected it to have a totally different funnel or not convert at all. I always say like e-com and direct to consumer is a moving target and it moves every 4 months on average. It used to be every 6 months. So back before COVID, right around COVID time, it was like every 6 months, there was kind of like a new way to do something. And now it's every 4 months, if not shorter. Like I've been finding the one thing that has made all TikTok posts go further is trying to get the algorithm to connect it to a narrative. And when it does, then it drives. So like I put a post up and then I'll go into the search bar for related content and I'll find what I want it to rank for. And then I'll start kind of chatting with those people that are ranking for that piece. And it tends to then put our content in that ranking automatically for us. And that has been helpful.
Mm. Like any other tactics that you all use to get your organic reach is just like out bonkers. Like you have 5,000 or almost 6,000 followers on Instagram, but you're getting 1,000 shares for some of your organic posts, which is like better than big brands that have hundreds of thousands of followers.
Appreciate that. I think it has a combination of a few things. I have a secret meme page, and this meme page has like 150,000 followers. So I usually use that to drive energy and awareness. Our personal accounts will always kind of start it up and running. Um, and then I have just groups of friends that I send content to, and they'll start sharing and liking. And then it becomes its growing kind of like snowball that moves. I think the days of like putting something out and not expecting it to have visibility tends to fall apart really fast. There's usually like a good 20 to 30-minute effort after a post goes live, getting it to move.
Yeah. And then you're also putting out content that reaching out to friends that have audience. It's like, but yeah, like we're creating content that is also shareable. Like it's something you'd want to share anyways. And also you have that personal connection. I've always said that to grow on social, you really need to jump off the platform and push it elsewhere. It's either like through PR or like through your friends and your audience off the platform. Because just posting an organic post like Instagram's not going to do anything with that. The meme page is a really interesting strategy. So it's like not related to Laurel at all, a little bit.
Really kind of like I'll do some Laurel memes
Yeah.
um, called Shipped Beans. So I'll use that page and it has insanely good engagement and gets a ton of visibility around it. So then we'll do a post and I'll go into that page and I'll share it with all the other groups of dudes who are sharing memes. And then I'll put it on stories and I'll drive it as much as I can.
So cool. So cool. And then, so I've noticed on LinkedIn, you're posting a lot of transparency around meta ads, what's working, what's not working. And yeah, you're super transparent. You're really building in public. You're showing revenue numbers for Laurel. You're showing the Shopify dashboard. That's amazing. What have you learned? What's working? What's not working?
I've always wanted to create almost like a wall where I don't care if anyone's seeing it or not. It's pretty much the journey from 0 to like 500,000 and the things that are iterative and learning and figuring out. I've always kind of wanted to put it together in a place where someone can go back and find it and see it and say, oh, I learned that. As of like March 2025, I've learned a lot about the creative fatigue and how fast it comes. Right now, I'm very focused on the ROAS I'm seeing from fine fragrance, what I haven't posted about yet, has been insanely good. I always felt it to be, my presumption was that it would be harder to sell a fragrance at a higher price point without seeing it, touching it, smelling it. But it has been outperforming any other product we've ever released. Um, but like meta ads are the kind of bread and butter of how to grow and how to tinker and figure out, because it's the core of getting, I think, meta ads right is how do you communicate to an audience already knowing it's an ad, seeing an ad, getting obliterated by this AI ad, kind of like this overflood of so many things where like how do you go back to the old ad days of like someone has a really good tag or something that speaks to someone emotionally, into the Mad Men days. Like how do you find something that says makes you want to stop because it's communicating something to you that's so much more than just like, hey, buy this product. And I think the best way to do it, and I still lived in that era of like post of a story or an image and not having to get in front of the camera. I know that's where iterative content is now going, which is like it's become micro TV channels. So content has to become more and more replacement of a show, really. And getting that with ads has been a difficult challenge, but that's me showing my age.
Well, I mean, I think at the end of the day, if you put messaging and creative first behind a great product, the rest really should follow. Are you managing the ads yourself, or do you have outside consultants and advisors, agencies helping with that?
I do everything myself. I always check and change the creative on the ad spend, because it's out of pocket. So I'm like, I am totally need to be in control of this. Always kind of tinkering with the some details. So like targeting ROAS as a return and how to try to not outsmart, but like how to use the system that's built in there. So I'm creating everything on Photoshop and then putting it out into in Meta and then kind of going back and iterating, fixing, changing. Like I really think from 0 to 300K, it's just doing something and then going back, fixing it, and then doing it a little better, and then going back and fixing it and doing something a little better. Like it is a full-time job of just going through a website and redoing it, and then going through packaging and rethinking it. It's over and over and over again. First, like just you do it once and then you walk away from it, which doesn't really exist.
100%. Do you mind sharing what Laurel's gross revenue is up to?
We are just about to pass 150K. So last month we hit 16K and we almost doubled that this month. We're right about to cross 31K gross since starting, which is an amazing milestone. And I haven't posted about it yet because I want to keep going. But it has been a big jump. And I changed the ad spend exponentially last two, finding what works, doubling down on what works, killing everything that doesn't work, and then rethinking it over and over and over again.
Well, congratulations on hitting that milestone. That's awesome. And yeah, so essentially you're building, seeing the 1% that works, killing the rest, doubling down on 1%, building up that 1%, and then just repeat and rinse that process until you're just more and more optimized as time goes on.
Then you put more spend behind that one ad that worked, and then it starts to not work anymore. So then I have to rethink the way. It's this constant like cycle of you double down on an ad spend, it stops working, and then you have to think what worked in the beginning, and then putting one in and go through this kind of like circular motion, and it lasts for about a week and a half.
That's so fast. Yeah, it's so
So
fast.
fast.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. So what are some of the biggest, the most epic fails that you all had?
It's always one step forward, two steps back. I think the biggest fail so far with figuring out Laurel is not doing content soon enough and thinking I know better than what data shows. We did nudie with an adult film actress and it didn't convert from her side. She was a partner on the release of the set nudie and it really didn't move a needle at all. She was a great partner, but it showed me that what I think converts in that I always write this really big too is like eyeballs do not equal conversion. We've had our page last month had 1.3 million people on our Instagram page, but didn't mean anyone. We have a ton of traffic. We get about 1,000 people a day on our website. It doesn't mean they're converting. So eyeballs don't equal conversion. And that's been something I've been really honing in on, which is eyeballs for the sake of eyeballs will never.
I think that's really real. Would you mind sharing a few other things that you have on that smart brand sheet that you have that you've been referencing a few times?
No, I mean, like there's usually, and you can probably see it in my content. The brand will always focus on who is the enemy, figuring out the space in between or that delta between the enemy and the differentiation, and what's that open space in between the two. So my enemy is big soap. And what's the differentiation that we have, which is like pH balance, scent, what are our standout features, and how do we have the difference between the problems that they are creating and the solutions we're creating, and that's the space in between. And there tends to be a lot of anxiety in that space. So how do we find what that anxiety is? And then I also write, how do you reduce friction? So friction reduction, which is how do you reduce the activation energy to achieve one of these solutions is always a key point. And then how do I have authority bias and social proof, which is a combination of who has authority, who is social, that are giving us the value, some playbook. And then how do you start habit stacking to create more value? So when you're in that solution, how you start habit stacking. So that's why I was like, the body spray is an interesting habit stack because you're just adding another element that has less friction instead of putting on cream and wiping down, you're spraying, wiping in. And then how do you create peak intensity, which is what's peak intensity? It's the perfect morning. It's the perfect moment alone. What's like the brand's peak version of an intense emotion? This is kind of like the breakdown I use for kind of understanding other brands as well and why they do really well. Kind of like I always look to a few key brands mainly. I look to Liquid Death because they do this effortlessly and flawlessly.
That's powerful. I appreciate you sharing that. I know that was kind of like the playbook right there. Yeah.
So
Yeah. I saw you all are sold in Goop and Urban Outfitters. How important is retail for Laurel?
I haven't seen the translation of retail to value yet. That's kind of like kind of like it's a harder, piece to qualify because it shows value. So when someone goes onto your website to find your own product, it being sold is validated by these retailers that already have kind of like really good value. I know Goop has been selling very well. Forward has already placed 4 orders. I think they're on their fifth in a second after we restock new the Iraqi 40. So it's been going well. I always wonder if that will translate back to our website and how to kind of track if someone was a customer there and then came to us. Um, but I think they're really good, just like checks, like PR and press. I've never seen successful unless it was like right around COVID time that kind of created value. I've been in talks with media companies, just kind of getting behind the scenes under, slipping behind the veil because they've all been trying to sell. A lot of big legacy media companies have been trying to sell and seeing their numbers and where they make most of the money tends to be in creative consulting more than the actual viewership and eyeballs. So like what used to translate right around COVID time just doesn't anymore. We can be on the cover of Paper Magazine and that used to work very well. We did a BYU Virginity Club collaboration. My dad was on from Paper Magazine for like 2 weeks. It was great. And that translated very well. But now, I don't think people are going to those sources anymore.
Yeah, because I saw that you all are featured in like Dialine, Forbes, Fast Company, and some of these major publications. You don't really think those are moving the needle and pushing traffic?
They never do. Very, very rarely. We actually only have one piece of content that moves the needle and pushes awareness, and I haven't even been able to find the article yet, but I see a click through from a GQ article and I still can't even find it. So I don't even know. That one has lasted a long period of time. And I just cold email. My strategy is like what I did today, which is I spent about an hour going through someone who I'm trying to find and just go through LinkedIn, like go through Instagram and just try to find who is either a writer in a space, a buyer in a space, who's someone's manager. And then I just try to hunt them down and cold email them.
Is that how you got onto Goop, Forward, Urban Outfitters, and some of your other retailers as well? How did those come out?
All the initial retailers came from me reaching out. I use a lot of tools to just find who the buyer is, reach out to them directly, follow up a million times, finally get them to say yes, hopefully. Goop actually came to us, which I thought was really something special. There were a few really interesting people that came to us so far since launch that I can't tell if it's a sign of you're doing something right or it's a sign of the market that isn't successful. So these people are kind of like looking outward outside of like who's doing something new. I can tell in apparel and fashion when the market was doing really well and everyone was doing really well, nobody was reaching out to anybody else. There wasn't a lot of like kind of crossing, but I had like Vacation, the brand, reach out to me just to talk. I've had someone from Dermatologica reach out and just wanted to talk. So it's been a very interesting space of outreach. I'm still trying to gauge, like, is it because they're not doing something? Try to see something here? I don't know. I don't know.
Sounds like your grind is kind of the growth engine. I'm sure you and Laura's just constantly pushing forward to get Laurel Bath House out in front of the public.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
awesome.
It's honestly, it's all her. I take no credit. She is a amazing partner and an incredible wife. She's also one of the greatest Pilates. Well, it's called Legree, but the best way to put it, anyone doesn't know what Legree is, I call it's like Pilates steroid. She's an instructor here in LA and has an amazing clientele and is deeply respected and loved. And she tends to talk about the brand a lot, which is a bonus.
Yeah, that is huge. My wife also loves Legree. I tried doing it once, and that was the last time. I can just not like, no, you're stronger than me. It's good.
Yep. Yep. I was like, you can't see me like this.
Yeah.
Shaking. Shaking.
Oh yeah, the knees quivering. Cool. So what's next for Laurel Bath House? Products, distribution, content, creative. Where do you see this going?
So the next is, I'm really focusing on owning the bathroom as much as possible and doubling down and if not tripling down on the scent profiles. So what I want to keep doing is we have all these products in development. Like we have a body cream, a natural body cream that I'm really excited about. We have a spray deodorant. I think it's going to be somewhat difficult to communicate because it's a combination of everything. It's deodorizer with fragrance and oils and moisturizer that you spray on your body kind of like after you work out or after a shower. It's something I've always wanted, which is like after I get out of the shower, I want the smell to last. And I also want, moisturize my skin and I don't want to put cream all over. It just feels messy. So we created a spray. It's been like a 6-month development process, but that one's in the works. And then banana hammock, which I'm going to try to do like a fake Miami Vice reboot. It was originally going to be MGK and Shaquille O'Neal, and then it sadly fell out. But it just makes an opportunity to keep doing funny things.
Funny is kind of the North Star.
Always, yeah, fun, funny, playful, cheeky, make somebody laugh, make somebody feel like a little smirk. I think that's deeply human. Versus, like there's always, and I learned this from business school, is that you can't put green on top of green. We start going after the audience like a great the logic was like a bicycle that now has made from bamboo will never sell as well because you're always going to go after an audience that's so specific that will go after something that's more green and will immediately get rid of your product when something else is more. So adding green on green on green, which is always like the thing to never do, trying to find how to become a staple.
I think that kind of touches. So like fast forward 5 years, Laurel Bath House. It's a big brand. What do you hope people say about the brand, and what do you want them to feel?
A few things. One would be, I've always wondered, like I've heard this kind of question from a few people, which is like, where do you see the brand in 5 years? I see it as a successful, but still close to our heart brand that it's not in every single shelf. It's still curated and in very focused retailers. And for people to have fond memories when they think back on it. I always have such fond memories when I think back of scent and scent products when I was a kid. Abercrombie and Fitch had such like an iconic smell. I grew up in New Jersey, so like everyone's really into it was like a DKNY apple. And it just like, I'll smell it and it brings me right back to that moment. And what I want to do is I know nothing can last forever. So can I capture a moment in someone's life where they can smell it and then come back to that?
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. You're almost a year in. From what you've learned now through the process, is there any advice you give yourself before you started Laurel Bath House?
Spend all your time on content. And I wish I did it sooner. It was honestly where like I was hitting that 16K mark and I knew that it was flatlining for a few months and it had to pick up. And I was like, I need to rethink what I'm doing and get out of my comfort zone. And I wish for so much longer I just would focus on content, because content has been what has been driving, and this energy behind just putting out, putting out, putting out, putting out, and really understanding what makes a brand smart. Like I make a chart. I got a little chart here of like my secret sauce to how to make a brand successful. And we've used it. I've also worked on influencer brands and helping their brands kind of grow and scale. So I use this kind of chart a lot. I wish I just put that application in sooner. I'd say.
What's your process now for creating content?
I wake up really early in the morning. I chug a lot of coffee and I sprinkle a little 5 ants on top of that coffee. So I'm awake. Um, and then I just kind of like think of, I have a list. So I have the brand here, and then on a monitor here, I have a list of all of the touch points that I always want to be talking about, visiting, revisiting. And then I just try to put those pieces together and just kind of like education and being bad at dating, right? Like that's something I wanted to talk about. So like putting those pieces together, education, bad at dating, smell, how do I put it together? And then just think of something and then shoot it and then hope it works. And if it doesn't, then kill it real fast.
Any other brands that you pull inspiration from?
I like to look at Dr. Squash a lot. I think what Dr. Squash is doing is really good in regards to how they communicate to an audience that's internet first. I think Duolingo does an incredible job of it. The classics like Scrub Daddy, I think they toe the line of mass market and kind of like sexual nuance really, really, really well, where they get away with it. Like where they really kind of like can hit because they're in a very similar category that doesn't have a lot of excitement. It's a utility based. So how do you create excitement in a space that doesn't have a lot of, excitement in there, which is sponges or soap or water. Those are the key ones I watch a lot of.
Any other closing thoughts?
I always wish I knew that success is combination of like, or at least the success that I've seen, which is who you know and the relationships, the effort into longevity of relationships, which is something I need to keep reminding myself. Relationships kind of are everything. And I've watched this from a high level. Someone just calls Jake Paul and they say, hey, you want to do this fight? And he's like, yeah, okay, cool, do it. And then now there's a fight price. And it becomes this massive thing. It was just one phone call, one person's idea that was in a room in the middle of downtown LA. Like it's just who you know, who you're around. And, I've never outsourced anything to anybody because it may be harder to do it, but I would say you will do a better job yourself. Rose in good faith. The last brand, we had 6 employees and it was more of a painful experience than it was a learning experience. You can always do it better yourself. The people around you should be the ones that are, giving you the insight, the advice, and just cold emailing, just reaching out. But I try to do it at least 10 a day.